Hey guys, the interview's finally here, and the footage was definitely worth the wait. I mean, look at it, it looks gorgeous. However, just a disclaimer that this footage is from a very early pre-alpha build of the game, recorded in a free-for-all match with Crush, a developer, against lots of bots, so there might be some stuttering or other glitches in the footage, but none of that will be in the final game, so please keep that in mind while watching. Also, I don't have enough of the new combat footage for the whole interview, but there will be pictures and footage from the dev blogs that will fill out the rest, and I highly recommend you guys watch until the end for all of the answers to your questions. Thank you, Crush, so much for giving me this footage, and without further ado, here's the interview. Hello, everyone. This is Ripper, and today I'm going to be interviewing Marco, otherwise known as Merox, lead developer on Mordhau, a game that I have been excited for since I first saw the slasher prototype for it so many months ago. Merox, go ahead and make your beautiful self known.
Hello, my actual name is Marko Grgurovic, but Merox works just as well. I'm one of the developers in Mordhau and also the crazy guy that decided it's a good idea to start working on this game all by myself. Luckily, Barrow, who is another developer, joined me early on in the slasher days, and with the announcement of Mordhau on Unreal Engine 4, we've grown immensely both in popularity and in team size. So now we're at around 13 people working on this game, and we're aided by this amazing community that has sprung up around it.
Yeah, you guys have had some incredible growth, and now we're going to have all of our curiosities regarding the game finally put to rest. Just a note before we begin that I will be making several references to Chivalry, Mount and Blade, and other melee slasher games, as these are good points of reference for the genre Mordhau is going for. A few of these questions are mine, but most of them have been asked by viewers and the community at large, and Merox is going to do his best to answer as many as he can. For any questions that were posted in the comments but did not get answered, and any questions that crop up throughout the interview, check out the dev blogs or the forums for Mordhau, both linked below in the description, for the relevant information and a place to ask said questions. Now, Merox, you've already introduced yourself a bit, but why don't you talk about the development team a little bit more before we begin?
Yeah, right. So we're at around 13 people. We have been growing immensely, but right now we're at a good spot. We don't really want to grow more than this because it makes it harder to manage so many people. But yeah, we have artists and programmers and sound designers, and everything is going great. We still want to do some outsourcing and get some more art and stuff into the game to help make a better game. For that, we will later on have something like a longer Kickstarter campaign that will help us raise some funds, but more about that later.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Better you can make the game before it's out, better it's going to be. Yeah. To begin, for those viewers who have yet to see or hear anything about Mordhau and aren't exactly sure what it is, could you give a short summary of what the game's all about?
Yeah, this is there's a lot to it. Obviously there's combat, but there's a lot more to it than that. But I think the one core thing about it is it's easiest to see it if you've played one of these melee games where it's very highly skill based and you get really good at it, and then you go into a fight and you have 4 people attacking you and you just methodically take them apart, disassemble them and come out on top. And there's this amazing feeling, right? And I think this is pretty much what this game is all about. Why we started working on it, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. That moment on the precipice, it's a beautiful thing. And you already basically mentioned the other games. I take it you've gotten plenty of inspiration from games like Chivalry, Mount and Blade, melee slashers like those.
Yeah, absolutely. And even things, like War of the Roses or, Jedi Academy and all that stuff we've played.
Yeah, you're digging deep, man. Yeah, Jedi Academy, absolutely. Any melee slasher completely relative to this game. Now, a very common question I wanted to get out of the way early that was already answered in the first dev blog, but I thought would be worth reiterating. Is it true you're doing your best to avoid the ballerina-style gameplay that can be seen in Chivalry, where animation and hitbox manipulation and exploitation is necessary to win fights at a high level?
Yes, to a certain extent. There are some situations where this is not something that is desirable because it makes things look weird, but at the same time it removes from some of the skill ceiling in the game. So we have to balance this, and we have to add new mechanics to fight the removal of some of the mechanics. With things like, a big thing was things like backswings, hitting people from behind. We got rid of that with a very simple approach of just doing it where if you're looking up and you're doing an attack from overhead, it won't do damage until it's further along. So it elegantly fixes that huge problem, I guess, in this style of play that emerges if you leave it in.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys are trying to find a happy medium where people are having fun and there's mechanics that make the skill ceiling high, but it doesn't look ridiculous.
Right,
Am I right?
exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. That's exactly what I want to hear. Now, with that in mind, how will you make the game approachable for a casual audience? One that perhaps isn't too interested in playing at a competitive level, but just wants to have a good time with their friends, lop off some heads.
A huge part of this is I think everyone wants to be competitive, but competitive at their own pace, at their own level. So they might play, with their friends, but they might still be competitive with their friends. It's just not, the esports type of competitive.
Yeah.
So it's very much about making sure that they have a similar playing field when you put these people together. And one thing we're doing is for our official servers, we're going to have a type of matchmaker that puts you in a good server for your skill level. But it's not, a strict separation where you have like new players here and the pros on the other side. It's much more muddy, so it mixes them up a bit, but it makes sure that the mix is enjoyable.
Okay. I think that end goal is fantastic as long as it's enjoyable in the end. Like, if the new players, like you said, everyone wants to be competitive at a certain level, whether it's being competitive at a level where you're just fun with your friends or competitive at an esports level. Everyone just wants to have fun in the end. And
yeah, right. But you still should see that, that amazing player.
Yeah.
Even the newbies should get a chance to see them and see what happens
Right.
with this game at a higher level.
Exactly.
It just shouldn't be the majority of them, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, is something like a tutorial planned?
Absolutely, we plan to have a tutorial. Usually, like these things are in games, they're like scripted sequences where the player will go through these, talk to these characters, and they will do some things, and they will show them the mechanics and stuff like that. I will probably have that. But one big thing is people who want to just get better at the game. They want to play this scenario over and over. Maybe they want to try to read how someone is feinting them, or maybe they want to get better at parrying, and we can have that as a scenario that you can repeat over time. And that's one of the things we're looking to try and fit in, so that people can use this as a learning tool as well.
Great. Yeah, having a learning tool, that is an absolute asset when you're just getting started in a game, or even in the later levels, and you want to repeat a scenario. Now, you already kind of answered, actually almost completely answered, how a hardcore crowd could be catered to. However, why don't you go into a little more detail, if you can, about the matchmaking system, and is there going to be any kind of ranks associated with that might help players be associated with a given match?
Yeah, so there will be some sort of ranking system that will help us know who we should pair you with and what types of servers would go well for you. It will definitely have like some sort of competitive aspect to it, I guess. It's kind of like if you've played Chivalry, the ranks, how they were there, even though they were just based on, playtime mostly. So definitely something that I think people will have fun climbing on those ranks.
I think if the progression is fun, then they'll enjoy getting better and just playing the game in that respect. And actually, on the topic of progression, do you guys have any plans to make any unlocks connected with ranks? I know that Chivalry had a system where if you got a certain number of kills with a weapon, you might unlock the next weapon in the set. Is there anything like that to do with the ranking system in Mordhau?
I'm not sure if we'll have something tied to ranks. The general problem with this is that if you have ranks that adapt to your skill level, you may lose those ranks. So you may lose unlocks in that case. I'm not sure if we'll do it that way. Maybe we'll have something like a playtime rank or sort of experience that you cannot lose. And in that case, we would probably tie it to that.
Okay. I just kind of bit of a side note, side question to say, would you perhaps equate your ranking system a bit more towards CS:GO's like competitive ranking system, in that it's more of a bar of where your skill is at rather than how much you've played or what you've done?
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty
Okay.
much what it is.
Perfect. I was just making sure. I think we make far too many parallels between Chivalry's ranking system and other games like it, but you guys are going for a much more competitively viable experience, and to do that, you have to adapt certain aspects, like the ranking system. So, what kind of game modes can we expect to see on release day? I expect some kind of competitive game mode, perhaps some basic modes. What do you have to say about that?
So obviously the basic stuff like LTS, the deathmatch, and one thing that I really enjoyed in games like Jedi Academy, Mountain Blade, and even Chivalry, but less to an extent so in Chivalry, uh, because in Chivalry, what I'm talking about are duels. So in Chivalry, we had this, at the start of the game, and still to this day, it persisted. This community thing where you had those free-for-all duel servers. That was really cool. I really enjoyed those, and I think they came all the way back from Jedi Academy, but I'm not sure. I know Mountain Blade communities have also sprung up and done the similar thing. We want to support that with an official type of duel mode that is exactly like that. And I think that's a big part of learning the game, going to those servers and interacting with people and then dueling them and learning from them.
All right.
The other stuff, LTS, like I've mentioned, Last Team Standing, the deathmatch modes, and then there's obviously that one game mode we want everyone to play, but I'm not at liberty to say much about that yet. We will reveal that in the coming months. But yeah, nothing I can say about that yet.
Alrighty, fair enough. Going to a completely different topic. This is a question I have been getting a lot, however. Will the game have any kind of unique lore attached to it?
We are going to have some lore attached to it. It's about mercenary armies, the free companies that used to be around in the early or so Renaissance. And that's kind of the sort of feel we want to go in for the game. We haven't talked about this much yet before, but definitely the coins you gain from your exploits, the money, and you buy equipment with this, with the customization and so on, and we tie a lot into this. But yeah, we haven't talked about much of this yet. There will be this sort of theme or lore to it, but it's still a multiplayer game where you just fight people, so it
Right.
probably won't have this huge importance.
Okay, yeah, I completely understand that. But to just follow up a little bit on that, do you see at the moment any kind of mechanical in-game actual use of perhaps a coin system attached to an XP system, maybe?
There are going to be some unlocks that are relevant to gameplay, but the reason why we're doing this is more like a tutorial, so we get you to experience these weapons that you might otherwise not want to try. So you go and you grab this weapon because you don't have the other one, and then you learn that you actually really like it. So we use this to sort of ease you into the game, but largely I think most of the gameplay changing unlocks will be the first things you would unlock.
Okay.
And then there's a lot of customization, obviously. That's cosmetic.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, trying not to block off too much behind any kind of XP wall or anything. Fabulous. On the topic of XP, actually, do you guys have any plans on encouraging team play specifically in public matches? I know in Chivalry there was this problem of teammates going for the kills. This is a problem in any team game, really. Teammates not focusing on objectives. Do you guys have any plans to deal with that?
There's always these, rewards for completing objectives like score and for being on the winning team and stuff like that. I don't know if we'll go much further than that. We don't have any plans right now, but things might change.
Okay. Yeah, I think a system akin to something like maybe the battlefield system, where if you win you get more points, accolades, things like that. If you actually take the objectives, you get points. Honestly, anything is better than the Chivalry system of kills equals XP. and points. So
Yeah.
yeah. Now, once again, changing to a very different topic, most of the people who have played Chivalry adore the voice emotes, me being one of those people. And any kind of voice commands in the game, they're fantastic, they're hilarious, they're awesome. Do you guys have any plans for character voices in-game?
Yep, we plan to have voices in the game. The other thing is, I think you mentioned emotes, but in terms of voice, one thing we're doing that we did back in the slasher prototype that was really popular are emotes that are types of animations that you do.
Yeah.
And we're doing a lot of that, and it's not just animations. Like you may, you grab out your sword, you've killed a few people with it, it's bloodied, and you have this emote where you clean the blade or flick it and clear off the blood, and it has an actual effect on the sword that you see. And all kinds of stuff like doing a suicide emote and actually dying and things like that. It was hugely popular in Slasher, where you could twirl your sword and then chain that into a parry because the animations flowed into each other, and we definitely want to put that at a very high priority.
That is awesome. I think any kind of physical emotes that you let the players work with are just absolutely, like doing a flourish with a blade and then killing someone with a finish. That's awesome.
Yeah, because it lets you express yourselves, right?
Yeah,
It's like you get this creativity, and everyone's like, "Whoa, this guy is a real badass. He didn't have to do that, but he did."
You get a triple kill and then you flourish your sword. That's just an awesome image. Now, on that same topic, is there any chance of voice packs, perhaps, in the future as mods or downloadable content?
We don't have any specific plans for DLC right now. I mean, it's something we could look at post-release, depending on how the community feels about these things. It's very much, a dialogue between us and the community. We don't want to do something the community hates us for it. So obviously, it's something that we would do if we would do while communicating with them about these things.
Right. On that same sort of topic, having to do with mods, what do you think about modding? Is there going to be modding support on release for Mordhau?
It will probably not be on release, but I hope soon after release. Like directly at release, it probably would not be a good idea either way, because there will be breaking changes with some patches at first, and we don't want to, have modders lose their work over this, and everyone will still be playing the game. But, as soon as we can get them right after release is good, so that people don't, give up on the game or just forget about it.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Modding is a fantastic way to expand the game's lifespan and to give some players more enjoyment. What sort of information in the game, sort of gameplay question, sort of information can the player expect to have in their user interface? Is it going to be kind of like Chivalry, Mountain Blade, War of the Roses, where it's just health, stamina, period?
Well, in terms of War of the Roses, I think that one is vastly different.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because no, it's mostly because of the bloat. They have a lot of stuff on the UI.
Oh, okay.
Like you have numbers coming up all the time that shows how much damage you dealt. That is all kinds of indicators. It's a very heavy UI, and that's what we're trying to avoid. That's why I mentioned that specifically. So we are trying to go with something, closer to maybe Mountain Blade, minus the emblems all over the place.
Yeah.
Definitely something minimalistic that doesn't get in the way, because when you play a game like this, especially in first person, the view needs to be unobstructed. You need to be able to read the animations, you need to be able to read your opponent, and we don't want to get in the way of that.
Absolutely. And a corollary to that, sort of, what about a spectator camera? Are you looking at a very bare bones approach, or do you want to really cater this towards a competitive sort of esports centric ideology with the spectator cam?
There's a few things with this. There's like the harder parts of the spectator camera and the easy parts. The easy parts are just, how do you flick between players and what kind of information do you have displayed. But the harder parts are, do we have, first person spectating? And we do have it. You can spectate someone in first person. You can see what they're doing with their mouse. We can see what, how they play, and not just by watching the third person animations, which don't always tell you enough in terms of if you want to learn from them. And then there's recording demo footage as well. That's something also we want to have in the game, and you can record first person footage of someone else playing. As far as the actual competitive camera like modes and display of people playing in each team, I think we'll do more of that when we go towards the competitive modes. But I think for public modes, it wouldn't make sense, sort of, I guess.
I think I understand that. Yeah, trying to keep the detail where you want it, and it definitely makes sense. Like if someone's just spectating a normal pub game, they don't want to have all this stuff all over the place. They just want to see the game.
Yeah, all the players, at each side of the screen when there's like 32 players or something like
Yeah.
that. It wouldn't fit.
But for something like maybe a 6v6 comp format, if that were the case, it would certainly be very nice to see.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So now you've already talked a tiny bit about post-release stuff, what with the mods, but what sort of post-release support can you think of right now that you guys are planning on doing for Mordhau?
We're looking at it more like a platform from which we can build. Like the release, it's usually with these, early release games, early access release games that they build on them. And then there's this, either you're doing an early access release or you're doing a release where you kind of release the game and that's it. But the reality is much more muddier than that. And so we do want to keep building on the game. We want to release a complete product, but we want to keep building on it. And bringing more people in it and diversifying it. And one aspect we're trying to do this in is the competitive stuff. We don't want to release with the competitive, like completely fleshed out with, room-based matchmaking and stuff like that. There will still be competitive modes that you can play and that clans can organize and scrim. But we want to focus on that post-release so that we can have a good idea of the meta of the game, sort of when people have already played it. We already have a stable community, and we can then inject maybe some money into tournaments and get that going, like proper competitive stuff.
That definitely makes sense. Yeah, see how the game grows in its infancy and then try to work with it from there. That's sensible.
But it's also a time constraint,
Right.
when we have to do all these things and we can't do all of them.
Yeah.
So.
Focus on polishing the game up before you release it rather than adding new stuff. Absolutely. Now we're probably going to get into a little bit more technical-ish questions. They might have a little shorter answers, so bear with us, guys. But we're just gonna try to pop out as much information as possible. So first and foremost, how will ranged weapons be implemented so that they're balanced in a team sense for team games, but so they're not a must-have or a useless entity to have on a team?
Well, one thing with ranged weapons is usually, like, you would get like this bow, and then the other thing you would get is a dagger, and that's not what we're doing. We're going to give you a bow, but we're also going to give you a decent weapon. So the bow doesn't have to be, an end-all nuke that destroys everything in the game, because you also have this backup weapon, which is reasonably good. The other thing is we're making ranged combat act more like in terms of melee, so you can react to things. You can parry arrows. If you get good at it, you can block them. You can deflect them with attacks and things like that. Obviously, you need to get good at this, and it's not always easy. But there's an option. You don't feel helpless. You don't feel like you need to zigzag and hope for the best. So definitely a support type weapon that can also kill people in the right situation, but not a sniper weapon that, in medieval times.
Okay. Again, yeah, it sounds like you guys are finding a really solid medium between a team annihilator and like a pea shooter. So that's good to hear.
But I don't want to make it seem like the damage is low, because that would be also feel really bad for the archer. So it's more like the case, reactable. So
right.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, as long as they're being rewarded for like really accurate shots, headshots, stuff like that, I think that's a fantastic way to go.
Absolutely.
So, in the same sense of weaponry, how will shields be implemented? What sort of mechanics are going to go on behind them? In Chivalry, you had it where if someone was holding up their shield, you could heavy kick them and they would get stunned. Is there anything akin to that Just how do shields work, basically?
Well, you can't obviously kick them. You can kick anyone.
You're right.
In this case.
Stun them. Yeah.
As far as the other stuff, shields kind of complement one-handed weapons. Since in this game it's you pick your own gear, you get to trade off shields for some other useful stuff that you might get. So shields kind of have this way to bring the one-handed weapons to the playing field of, say, two-handed weapons. But as far as specific mechanics, we're still working on these. I don't know what they will end up being in the end, so I don't want to go too much into it right now.
Right. That's very, very, very solid answer. Yeah. It's not done yet. Don't talk about it. On the topic of chambering, also in the realm of weapons, will every weapon be able to chamber every other weapon? For example, will I be able to slash someone with a dagger while they're slashing at me with a halberd and end up chambering that? Is that possible?
Right now it is, but I don't know if that will stay the case. Like we still haven't done much diversifying in terms of smaller changes to the combat like that across weapons. There's one example where this isn't true, and that's fists, which obviously cannot chamber. A halberd, that would be very bad for your hand. But fists can chamber fists, and it leads to some hilarious fist fights.
Oh, that's awesome. And you just answered another question I was going to ask. Are fists in the game?
Definitely in the game,
Awesome.
and very fun to use.
That's what I want to hear. Fisticuff duels all day. So back to kind of a ranged weapon standpoint, are any kind of thrown weapons planned? Like javelins, throwing axes, daggers?
Yeah, there's two parts to this. One is most one-handed weapons, you can just chuck them at someone. You can just throw them. So if you have like a short spear, maybe you can get like 2 short spears if you want, and you can just throw it. But that's it. I mean, you've thrown your weapon, you've lost it. You have to go get it, or you have to draw another weapon. So in terms of javelins, that's how we're going with that.
Okay.
You get 1, you can get 2, or maybe 3 if you have lots of space. But then there's specific equipment that we call quick throw equipment. That's just something you get, like a throwing axe or something, and you can in one motion throw that and put your weapon in the other hand and just throw it and then switch back. So it's seamless. You just press a button and he does that, and you can use that to like track down and kill people that are trying to run away from you. But it's reactable, so you can parry it because it has a windup and it cannot be cancelled. If the other guy is aware of it, he can just parry it.
That sounds fantastic. So, unlike in a game like Chivalry, when you have someone in your sights that's low on HP, maybe they're running a little bit, and you want to just get a couple throwables off, you aren't completely defenseless when you pull them out. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. You're not defenseless, and as long as the other guy is, turning his back at you or not willing to parry, you're safe.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Now, this is going to be a very overarching question that I think I already know the answer to. Will there be anything resembling classes, like locked-in armor weapon combinations?
No. So compared to, like, if you take 2 games, like a Battlefield and Call of Duty, it's more like Call of Duty.
Okay.
I perhaps like Call of Duty in this sense. Since you make your own class by picking the gear and the armors, and also some types of perks or skills that can influence how your character performs.
Mm-hmm. And is that just part of the analogy, or are you guys actually considering perks, skills, things of that nature?
Yeah, that's part of what we're considering.
Okay.
So the skills are essentially a way we can have some sort of control over what you can combine, but it's not like classes. It's not hard coded type of you only get this and this, but it's more like you can do some trade-offs with them, right? So you can get heavy armor, but then maybe you can't get a bow or something like that.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, so limiters that also give you extra capabilities, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's just so we have something that we can balance the game. Otherwise, it would be complete chaos.
Yeah.
Plate archers.
You give someone a box of Legos, they're going to make a tank. Because, yeah. In that same vein, having to do with customization options, if you could give me a ballpark figure, how many different weapon customizations do you think there are? There will be in release.
Well, it's a crazy number because you have to understand how that works. Um, so let's take a sword for example, right? You have a blade, you have a cross guard, and you have a grip, and for each of those, you have three options. So you can pick three different blades, three different cross guards, three different grips, and you get like 27 swords that you can make just
Oh,
out of that.
yeah.
And then there's like three colors you can put on it. And sometimes there's even a pattern you can put on it. So it blows up quite quickly. Um, but like I mentioned, like three things you can, like three different choices for each part. And that's something we're sticking to. But
Okay.
for example, if you were to get a greatsword, maybe you would have parts that look like a Renaissance greatsword, just vanilla stuff, and then you unlock a skin that has parts that are like a claymore, and now you can build claymores out of it, but you can't mix them. And the reason why you can't mix them is so that we have some sort of style control over the game. So people, don't make weird combinations of like a Zweihander with some crazy claymore grip. Then it all looks weird in
Yeah.
the end, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like to make another parallel with chivalry, some chivalry skins change utterly what the weapon looks like, so like nobody has any idea what its capabilities are.
Yeah, that's a huge problem, and that's something I very much dislike and do not want.
Awesome. That's good to hear. Yeah, the weapon. So in terms of the customization, I take it then that every part of the weapon, if you're going for three choices for each part of the weapon, I take it every individual choice will have a specific change in the weapon's capabilities, stats.
No, we don't do gameplay changes according to that.
Okay.
And the reason for that is essentially it would mean that there would be a lot of different weapons. For one, it would be very hard to know what you're up against, almost impossible. The other thing is we would have to balance all this, which means that, and it's not possible to balance all this. So we would get weapons that are really bad and weapons that are really good, and this in turn would devalue customization because people simply wouldn't use those things. So in the end, we decided not to do gameplay changes so
Okay.
that everyone can use, what type of cosmetic look they like without having being judged by us by doing bad balancing on that aspect.
Okay. So then what I'm hearing, there's a base set of weapons that we're going to be able to edit to all high hell in terms of their looks cosmetically, but they're each going to have their own individual set of skills, regardless of what their cosmetics are.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to clarify that. Okay. Now, kind of going back to that lore aspect I was talking to you about, the sort of mercenary experience, that sounds really cool to me. Are there any plans at all for a single player experience? I know you guys are focusing on the multiplayer, but is that at all in the works?
So we don't have any plans for a single player campaign or anything like that. And some things, like I mentioned during the when we talked about a tutorial, well, like these scenarios you could do, and we may have some stuff, like an arena that you fight in, and you fight these bots and get better at. But I don't know if we'll manage to fit all that in. It's something we would like to do, like small chunks of single player content, but you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you guys are making a multiplayer competitive slasher experience in my eyes.
Right.
So yeah, to divert from that while it's in its infancy, that might be a bad idea. Now, these scenarios, these little bot scenarios, do you have any plans on making those perhaps a co-op experience? Maybe something like Chivalry's Horde mode?
So with these bots, the big part of making this co-op experience is first having bots in the first place, which luckily we do. We have bots, and they're pretty ruthless. They destroy quite many members of the development team, um, and I've been told to make them worse. And not because they cheat, just that they have these disgusting playstyles that will destroy you.
Oh wow.
But Are we going to do that in co-op? I don't know if we'll get to it.
Okay.
We will support that in terms of, you have the bots, modders can just go and do it. Maybe we'll do it. Horde mode was in the end just something the developers of Chivalry made as a mod. So we might as well do a similar thing, because why not?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Again, it sounds like something you guys probably want to do after the game's fully released, after you've got everything ironed out on it.
Yeah.
All right, just sort of a random question here. Will there be any kind of dual wielding? I know that anyone who's watched Scalagrim knows that wielding two swords is just not really that effective, but are you guys considering that at all for the game?
I'm not sure if there will be, like, at this point. It might. We're sort of leaning towards no. We don't have any specific plans for this, but things may change. Still, I don't think there will be dual
Okay.
wielding.
All right, yeah, hey. How about any kind of special features having to do with clans or groups, like any kind of rep or logo emblem, that sort of thing?
Most likely not. We may consider this later on when we're doing the competitive stuff, and integrating that into the clan type of things. But I don't. We don't have any plans for this on release. No.
Okay. What about a very important aspect that was actually taken out of Chivalry due to abusers, to my knowledge? Will there be any kind of in-game voice chat, or will in-game comms just be limited to text?
So we may or may not have voice chat. If we do, it will most likely not be like the way it was done in Chivalry, where you could, hear it server wide. It will probably be, stuff you can hear when you're close to someone, like proximity based. But I don't know if we'll have it in the end, because we have, these voice commands, and it might sound weird if you also have voice chat, or maybe not. Maybe people will really want that, and we'll just end up doing it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely something that I can imagine would take a lot of deliberation to make sure you do it right, if you do it. And just sort of a basic question for the international community. I can imagine this is something you'd probably do post-release. Do you plan at all on adding voice translations for those voice commands in languages other than English?
No, it wouldn't be feasible for us in terms of, finding those actors that are good and then getting them to record. And it's a lot of work that we simply cannot manage.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You're a small team. Makes perfect sense. And just kind of a very far out question. Any plans for mounts to show up in the game?
So we have we have this the system for vehicles in the game that are things like catapults and ballista, and maybe if we do siege towers and rams, and I don't know what all will fit in, but there isn't a system behind this that allows us to create these things. It's kind of like Battlefield's vehicles, where you just go in and you're driving in a jeep and you're shooting out of it or something like that. And modders can use this, of course. This is also a big part, so that they can build up and create their own things from this. If there will be mounts as in terms of horses, I can't confirm or deny that at this point.
Okay. But hey, yeah, that vehicle system has a lot of promise to it, I can imagine, in terms of siege weapons, anything of that nature. What is your target for a maximum possible number of players that can be in a server for Mordhau?
We're doing what we can to hit really high numbers, but I don't want to give any specific number right now and then have people be disappointed if we deem that we can't run it. For sure that server owners, if they want, they can put that as high as they want, and I'm always a sucker for optimization, so I try to make it so that you can run as many as possible, as much as we can get. So
Okay.
we are aware of it. We know people want this, and we want this, but I cannot give exact numbers yet.
Okay. That's fair, absolutely. Still very early in development. Now, we've already seen some gameplay in the dev blogs. We know the game looks absolutely gorgeous in UE4. So the question is, what would you say are the expected system requirements going to be on release? What do people's computers have to look like?
Again, this is something, we would have more accurate info towards release, because usually optimization and, of course, the hardware changes as well. So right now something might be, a high end system that may later become not as high end when we release. Um, but to give an idea, that we do take optimization seriously. I do most of my development, or pretty much all of my development, on a NVIDIA 560. That's a
Wow.
5-year-old card. So, I force myself to do that so that we make sure that this thing runs as well as it can possibly run. And with a game like this, you need to, at least I need to run this at 60 frames per second. Otherwise, it's harder to play it. It's harder to react to things. So.
Yeah. Yeah, keeping it a more or less equal playing field across different computer specs. That sounds like a fantastic idea. Making sure it runs decently. Now, can you talk at all about your target price point on the game's full release? Obviously, it's probably a long ways away, but do you have any thoughts to that effect?
Yeah, we're looking at like $20 to $30 price
Okay.
point. That's kind of the range we're considering.
Awesome. That's very fair. Do you have any plans to bring the game to consoles at all?
No plans right now. We just can't, manage this
Right.
workload of porting. I don't know if we would ever consider this post-release. I have no idea. Like,
Yeah.
based on the reception, who knows? But right now, no.
Right. Absolutely. And finally, the question everyone wants to hear, if you have an answer. Do you have any word on a release date, a Kickstarter date, or anything of the sort?
So we've recently been more liberal with our release date. Started telling people about it. Well, and ourselves, I guess, because we never had one.
Right.
So something like Q3 2017 is sort of what we're shooting for. With a Kickstarter this year, hopefully sooner rather than later. But it always gets delayed. So if I give an exact month and
Right.
we miss it by a month, it never helps.
Absolutely. Awesome. So Q3 2017. I mean, hey, it's a date. And it sounds like you guys will have a pretty solid product by that time. Well, that was an interview. Thank you so much, Merox, for taking the time to do this with me. All of us fans of Mordhau really appreciate it. And we can't wait for the next dev blog. And if I may ask, when do you think that will be coming out?
It's actually very soon. Now,
Ooh.
yeah, we all usually say soon and it means nothing. Very soon means something, but it's hard to quantify.
Right.
It's coming. It's coming. It's coming soon.
The good old Valve soon. Soon
Yeah,
TM.
this is very soon, Tia.
Very soon, yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks, guys, for watching. Remember to check out the links in the description for more information on Mordhau, to follow the development, and to check out the forums and ask any questions. Merox, do you have any closing remarks to make?
Well, thanks for having me for the interview, and to everyone else, be on the lookout for a Kickstarter. Hopefully, I'll see you guys in the game someday.
Hey, that's the plan. As always, have a grand day, and we shall see you guys next time.